Amanda is a confident young and beautiful woman. She has this firm belief that every man wants her. She had many relationships before, but they only lasted for weeks or a couple of months. She immediately breaks up with someone on a whim, without any valid reason. If she feels bored, she will dispose of anyone in an instant, without batting an eyelash. Amanda works as a cashier in a grocery store. She always carries a big smile, especially if the customer is a man. Her male co-workers also admire her, but not her female colleagues who appear to be disgusted by her actions. Amanda thought that they are just jealous and envious, because every man swarms around her. She never invests emotions whenever she is with someone, because for her, everything is a game. But everything changed when David started working at the store. He works as a stalker. What's odd about him is that he just ignores Amanda, even though she's taking the initiative to talk to him. He just smiles and nods at her, then leaves. She cannot accept the fact that someone like David would treat her like that. But despite his actions, Amanda kept on bugging him whenever she can, during work hours. David is an average-looking guy, but he has a certain charisma. Some of her female co-workers always talk to him, and this made Amanda irritated and extremely annoyed. She can't understand herself why she behaves this way. It's the first time that she felt something like this. It's as if she is under a spell. She just knows that David should be with her at all costs, and that no female colleague should talk to him, or even come near him. Weeks have passed and David still doesn't talk to Amanda, and this made her insane. Everyone at the store have noticed a sudden change in her. She's not the confident Amanda anymore. Her job is severely affected, and she cannot function properly without seeing David. She is officially obsessed with him. This made David extremely ecstatic and satisfied because finally, he was able to get back at her, for playing with his younger brother's feelings. Sean was Amanda's fiancé. He became mentally ill because of severe depression and anxiety. Sean is secretive, and told the family that he will just introduce his girlfriend once she accepted his proposal. Amanda did accept it only after a month of dating, but the day before she was about to meet the family, she dumped him because she got bored, and never talked to him again. This made him lose his mind. He kept looking for Amanda. He cannot accept that he has been treated like trash. He felt like he has been just a part of her experiment. He felt self-pity. David felt sorry for his brother, as he looks at him on his bed, talking to a doll which he named Amanda. David swore to avenge his brother. His plan is nearing its completion, and tonight will be the final step. He was smiling as he burns a picture of Amanda on an altar. This was his final blow. The following day, David invited Amanda to come over to his house. She was immensely excited because finally, David has set his eyes on her. She has waited for this moment for weeks. She wore the best dress she can find in her closet, put on makeup and an enticing perfume. When she arrived at his place, she immediately noticed stuffed animals in the living room, such as a bear, a deer's head, a fish, and even a dog. Amanda thought it was weird. David said that the stuffed animals are more commonly called as taxidermy mounts. He said that he is a full-time taxidermist, and he's just working at the store as his pastime. He asked her to sit on the couch, then offered her a glass of wine. Amanda instantly drank it then asked for another glass. As David is getting another drink from the kitchen, Amanda stared at the stuffed animals. She was really creeped out. Then all of a sudden, her jaw dropped as she saw someone familiar on one of the photos hanging on the wall. She stood up and stared intently at it. She can't be mistaken, it was Sean. And right beside him is David. She panicked. She urgently walked towards the door, but before she approached it, she became dizzy and nauseous. She fell hard on the floor. She asked for help from David, who was approaching her, but all he did was stare at her, smirking. A few months later, David walked into the room of Sean, who was still talking to the doll. He said that he has a surprise for him. He brought in a big and tall box inside the room. Sean hopped out of the bed then excitedly opened the present. He was in joyful tears when he saw the gift. It was Amanda, dressed in a wedding gown. David hugged his brother then said, "Now, you can be together." Sean brought Amanda on her bed then talked to her non-stop. David just looked at his brother with a big smile on his face, and at his latest taxidermy mount creation, Amanda. It is said that back in the 1960s, Annie and her boyfriend, who came from their prom, were driving along the 20-mile Riverview Drive in Totowa, New Jersey. They got into a huge fight, which led the man to open the car door, and throw off Annie on the road. Alone, scared, and injured, Annie began wandering on the street. Then she saw some bright lights, and without warning, was hit by a large pickup truck, killing her instantly. Even after, her white dress got tangled in the truck and she was dragged along the road, taking off or shearing off her face. Ever since the accident, it is said that unexplainable stains of red paint appear on the road each year, around the same date to mark Annie's death. It is believed that she is looking for revenge, and she will stop at nothing once she spots a target. Many people report seeing her on the side of the road, as if hitchhiking. Her apparition is so clear that many travelers believe she is real, until she disappears in front of their eyes. Adding to the spookiness, the street borders Totowa's Laurel Grove Cemetery. Today, motorists have reported hearing screams, seeing mysterious fog, and experiencing interference in their phones and cameras. Jeremy and Natasha were late for their prom. To reach the hotel faster where the prom is being held, they have to drive along Riverview Drive. Natasha forbade her boyfriend from passing that road, because of the hair-raising incidents she has heard. One of her friends said that she has seen the ghost of Annie, waving at her as she was driving one night. And when she looked from the rear view mirror, the ghost disappeared, but reappeared after a minute on the side of the road, waving at her again. Another one said that he got a strange and scary call while driving. He answered the call but no one was answering, then he heard a truck honking and screeching of tires, followed by a girl's scream, then a crashing sound. But the story which made Natasha really terrified was that of her cousins. He said that the ghost of Annie suddenly appeared on the passenger seat, with a sheared face. It didn't disappear until he completely passed through Riverview Drive. According to his cousin, it was the scariest 5-minute drive of his life. With those stories in mind, Natasha wouldn't dare drive along that road. But Jeremy insisted to pass through it because it's the shortest way to their prom. She thought of it for a couple of minutes, then reluctantly agreed. She is running for prom queen, and it would be unfortunate if she won and she's not there. She just hoped that they will not encounter the ghost of Annie, or any strange or scary incidents for that matter. Riverview Drive is rather dark because only few street lights are functional. They were in the middle of the road and still no sign of Annie, so far so good. Then up ahead, Natasha and Jeremy saw a teenage man, dressed in white tuxedo. And from the looks of it, the man will also attend the prom, and appeared to be hitchhiking. Since they're just going to the same place, they let him join them. The teenage boy, who introduced himself as Edward, was thankful for the young couple for helping him. Jeremy asked him how did he end up alone on the road, and where his car is. He said that his pickup truck crashed into a tree nearby. He was looking for his girlfriend because they had a fight. He threw her out of his truck. He felt guilty, so he decided to come back to look for her. But when he was driving, he hit something, then it was dragged along by his truck. He didn't see what he hit because he was drunk. All he can remember was it was white. He had difficulty driving because he was shocked and panicked, so he crashed into a tree. Both Jeremy and Natasha fell silent. Then Edward asked them if they saw his girlfriend along the way. He said that she was wearing white, and probably is still walking on the side of the road. He felt sorry for leaving his girlfriend. And he prayed that Annie will forgive him. Jeremy and Natasha immediately felt chills. Both were shaking in terror. Jeremy stopped the car on the road's shoulder, and glanced at Edward through the rear view mirror. He was shocked when he saw his face smashed and his neck broken. Then they heard a girl's scream. After the horrendous sound, Edward vanished. It seemed that not only Annie's ghost was haunting Riverview Drive, but her boyfriend Edward as well. After calming and composing themselves, Jeremy and Natasha drove to their prom. They vowed never again to pass Riverview Drive, even if it meant losing the title of prom queen. Krista and her team are in India, to feature the country's most haunted site, the Bhangarh Fort. She goes around the world to visit and feature popular haunted places, and to find evidence of paranormal activities. She works as a writer and reporter, in one of the region's prestigious television or broadcasting station. But her job is in peril right now, because her segment has been getting bad reviews lately. As a result, the sponsors are pulling out their advertisements one by one. But Krista will not give up that easily. She will do whatever it takes to keep her job, which she has worked hard for with blood and sweat. Krista hired a local tour guide named Farid, to give them the background and history of the Bhangarh fort, and most specially, the reason why it's considered to be the most haunted place in India. After setting up the camera, Farid began his story. He said that there are two legends why Bhangarh fort is considered haunted. The first legend tells of a king named Madho Singh, who built the Bhangarh fort after obtaining permission from a sadhu, or a holy man, named Balanath, who lived there, on one condition, that the shadow of the fort must never fall upon his home. But one of the ambitious successors of Madho Singh added to the fortifications vertically, thereby causing its ominous shadow to engulf the home of Balanath. Lo and behold, once it came to pass, the fort was doomed within no time. The alleged prophecy stood fulfilled, and the Bhangarh fort became haunted. The moment Farid finished his story, chilling strong winds suddenly blew in their direction. His face turned pale and he started trembling. Trista felt an ominous presence, as if something fearsome will befall them. But she shook this feeling off, because her hard-earned career is on the line. She asked Farid to continue with his story, to which the latter reluctantly obliged. He said that the second legend is more popular than the first one. It claims that Princess Ratnavati was responsible for the apocalyptic situation of the fort. A local black magician fell in love with her, and tried to bewitch a hair oil she was supposed to use, to make her fall in love with him. The princess smelled suspicion and foiled the entire conspiracy of the black magician, by pouring the bewitched hair oil over a massive stone boulder, which then rolled down toward the magician, physically crushing him. Before taking his final breath, he cursed the fort, saying that no soul would ever be able to live in peace there. The whole landscape around the Bhangarh fort has been haunted since. After hearing the legends, Trista said that they will camp out tonight at the fort, but Farid immediately exclaimed no. He said that it is completely forbidden to venture or stay inside Bhangarh fort at night, because anybody who managed to go inside the fort at night, never returned to tell their tale. He said that there are spirits roaming at night, turning the fort into a hotbed for paranormal activities. He also added that the worst of misfortune befalls those who venture to stay in Bhangarh fort at night. He recalled that once there were 3 people, who spent the night inside. Even though they had a flashlight, one of them fell into a well. As soon as he was rescued by his friends, they rushed to the hospital. However, on the way, all 3 of them were involved in a freak accident that killed all of them. There are also ghostly sightings and sounds of screaming. Other times, you'll get a weird sense of paranoia as if somebody is following you around. Krista listened to every account of Farid. If what he said were true, then Bhangarh fort is a gold mine. It was almost sundown, when the group left the fort after taking pictures and videos. Since it's forbidden to stay inside, Krista and her team just decided to install wireless cameras strategically around the fort, so they can record possible paranormal activities. They will just have to wait outside, and observe the footages from their van. Their LCD video monitor is split into 4, one for each camera. For a couple of hours, they didn't get any paranormal activity of some sort. But things changed once the clock hit 12. Apart from the noises coming from the monkeys and wild animals nearby, like panthers and tigers, they heard women crying and sounds of bangles coming from the camera's microphones. They looked intensely at camera 1's screen, but they can't see anything. Then suddenly, people in hoods appeared from thin air. They were laughing and dancing. Then after a minute, they stopped dancing and looked directly at camera 1. Krista and her team jumped backwards because of fright, as they saw them with their white eyes filled with rage. Then, camera 1's screen went on static. Then they saw camera 2's screen moving, as if someone was holding it and showing the path that it's taking. What added more to their fright, was that camera 2 was installed 20 feet above the ground. They were staring at camera 2 when suddenly, someone grabbed camera 3. They were surprised to see a young man asking for help. His face was covered in bruises. He said that he was attacked earlier by a panther, so he had but fell asleep. It's just until now that he woke up, and realized that it was already past midnight. The man just kept repeating himself. One of the assistants said that they need help the boy, but Krista said it's not necessary. She said that camera 3 was also installed 20 feet above the ground. In fact, all cameras were installed at the same height, so they can have wider view of the fort. How can the man reach the camera? They all fell silent as they continued to watch the screen. Camera 2 was continually showing the fort grounds, camera 3 still shows the young man, camera 1 is static, while camera 4 just shows a red screen since the beginning of their recording. The same scenes continued over the next hour until the sun started rising. Krista and her team went inside at 6 in the morning. They were accompanied once again by Fright. Krista told them everything that occurred last night. He said that the dancing people are probably the ghosts of the Jori Bazaar, which was known as the Ancient Market, but now known as the Ghost Market. The young man who was asking for help was probably the ghost of someone who went inside the fort at night and never returned. And this happened 10 years ago. Then Farid fell silent upon learning that they just saw a red screen from camera 4. He trembled. He told Krista to leave the country immediately. His voice was full of urgency and concern. She panicked and got confused. Farid said that according to the stories, people who died of freak accidents all said one thing in common. Before they faced their gruesome deaths, they saw a demon staring at them, with red eyes. Carl and his wife Daisy are driving to their Airbnb cabin inside the woods. Daisy was advised by her doctor to get some fresh air, to recover from a lung complication. The place where they are currently residing at, is not suitable for her current condition because of too many air pollutants, so they decided to be in commune with nature over the weekend. One of their friends recommended the Airbnb cabin, claiming that it did wonders to him when he, too, was recovering from illness. Daisy opened the car's window and breathed in the cool and misty air. The smell of the pine and cedar trees are tickling her nose. Her lungs was instantly filled with freshness. She felt relief. When they arrived at their destination, the two can't help but marvel at the beautiful sight before them. The cabin is surrounded by tall and ambrosial trees, and a clear and crystal blue lake. The breeze slowly caressed Daisy's face, and it was pleasant. She was positive that she'll be able to fully get back on her feet after their weekend staycation. The couple entered the cabin and they were welcomed by warm and cozy furnishings. There is a fireplace on one side of the comfy living room, which emanate a rustic yet aesthetic general appeal. The kitchen, bathroom and bedroom are all well kept. Indeed, this Airbnb place deserves more than 5 stars. Carl was unpacking their things in the bedroom, while Daisy is roaming inside the spacious cabin, still in awe of the place. She was adoring the rugged wooden furnitures in the living room, when she noticed that wooden floor felt hollow. She continued walking around the cabin and had the same hollow feeling. She was tapping the floor with her foot, when Carl surprised her with an embrace from her back. Daisy was startled, then punched her husband on his arms. He said that he's already hungry, so the two of them ate dinner. They decided to sleep early and will just roam the place tomorrow morning after breakfast. It was only 8 o'clock in the evening, and the couple are now lying on the bed. Carl was snoring while Daisy was half asleep. All of a sudden, she heard someone or something scratching on their bedroom door from the outside. She got frightened. She woke up her husband, but Carl was in deep slumber. The scratching continued for a minute, then it stopped. Though scared, she slowly tiptoed to the door, with a pillow on her hands, then silently opened it. She turned on the light switch just beside the bedroom door to illuminate the cabin. She found no one. She checked the main door and windows. Everything's locked. No forced entry of any sort. Daisy got confused and asked herself if it was only her imagination. She just let it go. But when she was returning to the bedroom, she noticed dog footprints on the floor made of dry mud or dirt. And from the looks of it, it just did not belong to one dog, but a pack or kennel. She became more perplexed because there were no dogs when they arrived. If there were, the owner of the cabin would have informed them, or it would be indicated in the Airbnb listing. Daisy just slept it off and will just ask Carl tomorrow, if he knows something about the dogs, which have strangely appeared and disappeared all of a sudden. When she woke up, there's no sign of Carl anywhere in the cabin, but instead found a note on top of the dining table in the kitchen. It said that Carl would just went out for a while, to buy additional food supplies from the grocery outside the woods. Daisy put on her jacket and strolled outside to enjoy the morning breeze. She was gazing at the lake when she heard purring sounds by her feet. She was surprised to see a Persian cat walking close beside her. She picked it up and cuddled it. She thought it was strange to see a house cat in the middle of a forest. She went back to the cabin with the cat to give it food. But the moment she was about to feed it, it was gone in the living room where she left it. Daisy found everything odd and bizarre. Last night, she saw dog footprints, then now a cat that's gone all of a sudden. There's no sense in dwelling on something that she can't completely grasp, so she just washed the dishes. She removed her wedding ring and placed it near her. She was almost done when she accidentally pushed the ring. It fell on the floor then rolled under the dining table. When she was reaching it, she noticed that the floor under the table is somewhat uneven. One slab of the wooden floor is slightly raised. Daisy got curious. After putting the ring back around her finger, she pushed the table with all her might to have a clearer view of the floor. She was surprised to see a keyhole. Her heart started pounding faster. She tried opening it using a knife. After minutes of struggle, she finally opened it with sweat all over her. She covered her nose while coughing, as a strong rotten smell started fuming out. She had smelled it before when they arrived yesterday, but it was fainter. She thought that it's just the cabin, since it's almost made of wood which tends to decay over time. Daisy was shocked to see a small basement. But it looks more of a storage area which is just 2 feet high. It was filled with oddly shaped objects covered in old newspaper. She picked one and tore the newspaper covering it. She was creeped out and immediately dropped it. She saw a carcass or a dead body of a cat. She felt nauseated and immediately threw up in the sink. Who would do such sickly and horrible thing, she thought. She was still throwing up when Carl arrived. He was alarmed and disturbed to see a rotten body of a cat on the floor. Daisy explained everything, from the hollowed floor, to finding a hidden storage full of dead animal bodies. Carl tore at least 3 newspaper-wrapped bodies, and found carcasses of dogs and rabbits. He furiously called the owner of the cabin, who was very apologetic. The owner said that the dead animals are part of a ritual, that has been passed on to every generation of their family. The ritual is used to treat different ailments, and provides physical and spiritual protection to the people currently dwelling the place. Carl was shocked. He relayed the information to Daisy to her fright. The two packed their things in an instant, then looked for a nearby hotel. As they were driving, Carl was still infuriated at what happened, but Daisy remained calm. Due to the circumstances, she should be frustrated, but strangely enough, she isn't. She felt better. The ritual worked. Maybe, if they have been properly informed, she wouldn't mind sleeping with carcasses under them. She opened the car's window, and breathed in fresh air for the last time, while giving a 5-star rating to the Airbnb cabin place. Steve was browsing Craigslist because he is looking for a room near his workplace. He just graduated from college, and needs to manage his finances wisely. Because apart from his daily expenses, he also needs to pay off his student loan. After minutes of browsing, he finally saw a listing within his budget. The room is already fully furnished and has a private bath. It has air conditioning and its floor is carpeted. Cooking and doing laundry inside the house is allowed. Steve didn't waste any more time. He immediately sent an email to the landlord. The transaction was smooth, and after just 1 week, he found himself already parking in the house's garage on a Sunday afternoon. He was welcomed warmly by the owners of the house, Carlos and Andrea. The couple led Steve to his bedroom. After giving the house rules, the two left Steve in the room to unpack and get settled. That night, the couple invited Steve to have dinner with them, so they can get to know each other better. Carlos said that he and Andrea have already been married for 5 years, but still unable to have a child because of health problems. Steve was surprised that such sensitive and private information was shared to him. He just empathized with the couple. After a few exchanges of small talks, they called it a night and went to their respective bedrooms. The following day, as Steve is leaving for work, he noticed a black sedan parked on the other side of the street. If he was not mistaken, that's the same sedan which parked just minutes after he arrived last night, which appeared to be following him on the way to the house. Steve didn't give it much thought, because it might just be a coincidence that they were going to the same street. But when he was driving on the highway, he noticed that the same black sedan is tailgating. He found it strange and he was quite bothered, because this is too much of a coincidence. He just focused on driving and looked straight ahead. When he arrived at work, he saw yet again the black sedan parked several feet away from his car. This time, Steve was creeped out. The black car is indeed following him. He hurriedly went inside his office building out of fright, hoping that the car will be gone at the end of his shift. After 8 grueling hours of work, Steve went to a grocery store to buy some personal stuff and food supplies. He was walking along an aisle when he noticed someone following him. His heart started pounding. He doesn't want to look back. He just had this gut feeling that someone is watching his every move. He hurriedly went to the cashier to pay for his items, then dashed to the parking lot. He was about to start his car when he noticed a man seating at the back seat. Steve screamed and tried opening the door, but the man stopped him. The man asked Steve to remain calm. He introduced himself as a detective. He was indeed following him due to an ongoing investigation. He said that people have gone missing over the past 5 years, and their primary suspect is the couple, where Steve is currently staying with. He said that there were tips and leads that the couple is involved in some satanic cult. The police tried questioning Carlos and Andrea before, but since they don't have any warrant of arrest or direct evidence against them, the police can't file an official complaint. Steve was just listening to the man. He found everything absurd and ridiculous. He's not believing anything that he's saying, because the couple has been good to him ever since he arrived, plus the fact that his rent is cheap. When he arrived at the house, he was asked again by the couple to join them for dinner, to which he eagerly accepted. Steve told about the man who kept following him. He also told them about the missing people, and their involvement in a satanic cult. Steve kept on laughing, saying that the man is insane. He noticed that Carlos and Andrea were just silent, all throughout the entire time. Carlos looked at Steve in the eye, and confessed that everything that the man said is true, in a calm and mild tone. Andrea added that since she cannot bear a child due to her health complications, they needed to find another way to have the family they have longed for. The doctors told them that it's impossible for her to have a child, so they sought the help of a mambo, a priestess who practices voodoo. She said that in order to produce an offspring, they need to sacrifice the souls of 10 people. Steve is the 9th person, and the couple only need 1 more to complete the ritual. Carlos and Andrea are both teary-eyed as they tell their story. Steve couldn't believe what he just heard. He tried standing up but his feet just froze. His whole body has been paralyzed. That's why he was always being invited for dinner. They must have put a drug on his food for him to be numb. His eyes were bulging as he saw Carlos and Andrea approaching him, both carrying sharp knives. The following day, Carlos and Andrea updated their listing on Craigslist. The room still has the same features, but this time, the monthly rent is cheaper. The two are smiling from ear to ear as messages on their email came swarming in. And it's only a matter of days that their family will be complete, after 5 years of waiting. Claire has been living her whole life as a single woman. Most of her friends, if not married, are already engaged to their significant others. Her parents are pressuring her to marry and start her own family, so someone can look after her when she's old and senile. But for her, there's nothing wrong with being a 35-year-old single woman. It's a thing nowadays. It's a sign of independence. But in reality, she just keeps on fooling herself that she's fine being single and all alone. Because the truth is, no man ever dared to date her. She's pleasantly looking. She's just too strong-willed, gives off this demeaning aura, and extremely snobbish, so no man tried to be romantic with her. Her personality is too overwhelming. One time while on her office desk during lunch, she was browsing her social media accounts when a window popped up. It's an advertisement which says, "Finding love, but love cannot find you." She got curious and clicked on it. She was led to a website which offers various occult objects, all relating to love. Listed on the website are different jewelry, potions, incense and spells, which all have the promise of finding you love. Claire was deeply intrigued. She has heard of love potions being effective from her friends, but she was skeptical. But there's no harm in trying. She clicked on a potion, then selected the fastest shipping at an extra cost. After a couple days, it finally arrived. It was discreetly and carefully packaged. She opened the box and found a message greeting saying, "Ready to change your life?" She immediately opened the potion. It emitted a refreshing, sweet yet intense fragrance. Claire was thrilled. She found instructions on how to use it, and there are several ways on how to. She can dab it on her wrist when she's about to go out, she can dab it on her clothes and collar, or she can put a few drops on a ritual candle. The following day before going to work, she excitedly dabbed it on her wrist and clothes. The moment she stepped out of her car in the office parking lot, she noticed that her male colleagues are all staring and smiling at her. Claire blushed. She was not accustomed to getting this kind of attention from the opposite species. Not only her male colleagues are noticing her, but also the other men in public places. She just finds it amusing. She never thought that the potion will be this potent. She decided to level up her game. After consuming the whole bottle, she ordered a couple more, and a necklace with a heart pendant. The necklace, based on the description, will attract and entice more the opposite gender. The following day, she was like a celebrity because all eyes were on her wherever she goes. She felt good about herself. It's as if she has been reborn. Her male colleagues also leveled up their game. Some are giving her flowers, chocolates, and many more. Some are even inviting her on a date. But among the boys trying to get her attention, Claire only went out with Luke. She was really attracted to him. They went out for months, and the two got to know each other better. But Claire has a major dilemma. She constantly needs to dab herself with the potion because if not, the effect on Luke disappears. After a year of dating, they finally got married and made a family. Claire still uses the potion and never takes off her necklace. She's afraid that Luke might leave her and their baby, once he realized that he has been under a spell this whole time. She wanted to tell the truth, but she can't risk her current life. Years have passed and they live a happy life together, and it's all thanks to Claire's potion and necklace. But in an unfortunate turn of events, Luke acquired a terminal disease and only has months to live. Claire was deeply devastated by the news. Perhaps this was her karma for using a love potion to bewitch her husband. No matter what they did, Luke's condition was not getting any better. His condition was just becoming worse day by day. On his deathbed, he told her that he needs to confess something before he dies. Claire became nervous and listened earnestly. Luke asked for forgiveness, which made Claire confused. He said that when she started working at the office, he immediately liked her. It's love at first sight. The problem was, she's too aloof and too much focused on work. He said that the moment their other male colleagues started approaching her, he needed to do something. Luke said that she put her under an extremely potent and powerful love spell, which required a blood offering. Claire couldn't believe what she just heard. All these years, she felt guilty because of the love potion that she has been using. It never crossed her mind that there's a possibility of her being put under a spell, because she's too busy finding a lover. Claire looked at Luke, crying. He smiled and asked for forgiveness once more, then breathed his final breath. At that moment, Claire's feelings suddenly changed. Her love became indifference. When she looked at Luke's lifeless body, she felt nothing. It's as if she is seeing him for the first time. She wiped her tears and walked away, like nothing ever happened. The COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed the lives of people all over the world. The only way to survive is to accept the fact that we are all vulnerable. Because if we think that we are going to protect ourselves and the ones we love, by complying to safety and health protocols. But amidst the increasing COVID-19 cases, some people still don't take precautionary measures due to personal, religious, or other health reasons. Sheila is hugging her husband, but Henry kept pushing her away. Not that he doesn't love his wife, he just needs to isolate himself because he has been tested positive of COVID. Despite being vaccinated and having booster shots, he still caught the virus, but thankfully, the symptoms were not that severe. Their 12-year-old daughter Iris is now staying at her aunt's place next door. Though she is completely vaccinated and also had booster shots, it is best that she stay away from Henry to avoid being infected. Sheila, on the other hand, has not received even a single shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. She believes that to gain immunity from the virus, she must be exposed to it, and fight the virus naturally. Henry and Iris are worried about Sheila's health, so they kept on reminding her to get vaccinated. But if she wants something, there's no stopping her. They just hope that her immune system is strong enough, despite having other health complications. The 5-day isolation of Henry is now over, and within that period, Sheila seemed fine. She ordered 2 boxes of pizza from the DoorDash app to celebrate her husband's recovery. Iris returned to their house but still wears a face mask to be on the safe side. A few minutes later, the order arrived and Sheila went to the door to accept it. Pizza has been the staple food of Henry and Iris. All 3 ate to their heart's content. But after 2 days since Henry's recovery, Sheila had shortness of breath and was having chills. She had runny nose, always feeling nauseated, and had loss of taste and smell. Henry and Iris were extremely worried. They did a rapid COVID test and as expected, Sheila got the virus. She didn't mind at all because she planned it. Iris just remained in their house because Sheila isolated herself in their bedroom, since she is already positive. After a day, her condition got worse. She just said to Henry and Iris, that it's her immune system fighting off the virus, but the two are not buying that. On the 3rd day, Sheila was having regrets of not taking the vaccine shots, because she was not getting any better. She told Henry that once she's cured, she'll get the first shot. Her husband was overjoyed because finally, his wife has come to her senses. Prevention is always better than cure. On the 4th and 5th day, Sheila's condition had become better, and there were minimal to zero evidence of the symptoms. She set an appointment for a vaccine shot for the next day. The following morning, Iris knocked on her parents' bedroom to remind her mother of her scheduled appointment. But when she entered the room, she found her dad crying while holding her mom by his arms. Iris was shocked. She rushed to her dad and asked him what happened. Henry said that when he woke up, he tried waking up Sheila, but she's not moving. He got worried and checked her pulse and breathing, but there were none. Tears began flowing on Iris' cheeks as she hugged her mother tightly. Henry told his daughter that an ambulance is already on the way. Both she and her dad were full of regrets. If they had just convinced Sheila hard enough to take the vaccine, then she would still be alive right now. After talking to the emergency medical technicians and the police, Henry scheduled Sheila's memorial service. On the day of the service, as Henry and Iris are leaving, they saw a car stopped in front of their house. A man went out, carrying 2 boxes of pizza. The man handed the pizza boxes to the very confused Henry. He asked Iris if she ordered and she said no. He said that they didn't order pizza, and that the man is mistaken. The man checked the address again but he was certain. He said that a woman by the name of Sheila, ordered through the Dash Door app an hour ago. Henry and Iris looked at each other with expressionless faces. The man was weirded a bit then left. Henry and Iris started sobbing. Even in death, Sheila still looked after them. Stephen couldn't help but ask his neighbor if he needs assistance in shoveling the snow in his backyard. For a 70-year-old man, he shouldn't be doing any exhausting physical task, especially on a stormy, snowy weather. But Mr. Morris refused the help, saying that he's still able to shovel. Stephen just nodded and went ahead shoveling the snow on their own backyard, with his headphones on. It's relaxing to listen to music while doing work. After an hour, he decided to rest for a while because his back is killing him. He went inside their house to rest. He noticed Mr. Morris just standing with his back facing him, looking on the ground. He thought that the old man is just tired and is having a brief break. After he's done shoveling their backyard, he thought of helping the man since he's just living alone. Stephen sat on their couch in the living room then checked his phone. After a while, he heard sirens of an ambulance and police cars, which stopped in front of their house. He got startled. He went to the front door and saw his parents talking to one of the police officers, while some paramedics and emergency medical technicians are pushing a stretcher with a body bag on top, out of Mr. Morris' house. Stephen got curious and nervous. He approached his parents, who are still talking to the officer. He was shocked from what he heard. One of their neighbors have called 911, because she saw Mr. Morris floating on the swimming pool in his backyard, about 10 minutes ago. From what Stephen learned, the old man has been floating on the pool for almost an hour. Apparently, Mr. Morris slipped and fell on the pool while shoveling snow. He has been pronounced dead when the medical team arrived. Stephen got frightened, because he just saw Mr. Morris standing before he went inside. The police officer was asking him some questions, but Stephen was speechless, as he stared at the body bag, covered in white snow. Scott had a very strenuous afternoon. The whole day, snow has been continuously falling from the dark sky. The blizzard has really taken a toll on him, because he was asked by his mother to shovel their driveway. Good thing is, the snowstorm has stopped come late afternoon. His mother helped him in shoveling the soft snow. His father can't be of much help because he was suffering from gout and can barely walk. If only his brother was here, shoveling would be much easier and faster. But ever since a snowstorm comes, his younger brother doesn't help because of his frail and weak body. Also, he catches cold easily. That night, he retired early to bed. He and his younger brother share the same bedroom because they sleep on a bunk bed. Since he is older and heavier, he sleeps at the bottom part. Scott is having a difficult time sleeping, but managed to do so after several turns. He was half asleep when he was awoken by a loud snore. He kicked the upper part of the bed, trying to silence his brother. It worked for a while, but the snoring resumed. Scott just tried to ignore it by covering himself with a blanket. Then suddenly, he felt chills. He became nervous. He just remembered that he's all alone in the room. Because his younger brother died last year. Leanne works as a nursing aide or assistant in one of the nursing homes in their county. She was supposed to call out of work because of the snowstorm coming, but they are understaffed. On her way to work, snow started falling. When she arrived, she saw an ambulance leaving the premises. She found out from one of her colleagues that her favorite resident, Gertrude, died just 30 minutes ago. Leanne was shocked. She was saddened by the news. Gertrude was not only a resident, she was also a friend. Leanne did her tasks as usual, but kept thinking about her friend. During her shift, the snowstorm was at its full force, but finally stopped before she left for home. As expected, everything is covered with thick white snow. When she arrived home, she had to shovel the snow first on her driveway so she can park her car. It took her almost an hour to finish shoveling. When she opened the door, cold chilling wind welcomed her. She wondered where the wind came from, since all the windows in the house are closed. Then, she was creeped out when she noticed a fresh set of icy wet footprints on the wooden floor, all the way to the stairs. All of a sudden, she heard someone walking on the second floor. She can also hear a thwacking or cracking sound produced by a wooden cane. Her heart started racing when she heard the footsteps slowly going down the stairs. Leanne was frozen, not because of the cold weather but because of extreme fear. Her eyes were fixated on the stairs, waiting for someone or something to appear. But as the footsteps began to fade, so was her anticipation because she saw no one. She just closed her eyes, then offered a prayer for Gertrude. Somehow she knew that Gertrude was bidding her goodbye. This passage is a story of two women who were starving, and agreed to eat their children. The son of the first woman was cooked and were eaten by the two. But the second woman changed her mind, so she hid her son to protect him. At that time, their city was being surrounded by enemy forces, and their land was stricken by famine. But still, eating your own son, or eating a human being for that matter, is disgraceful and unacceptable. Unless it's part of your custom or tradition. To each his own. Two prostitutes came to King Solomon, asking for his judgment. The two women live in the same house. The first woman gave birth one day, then after 3 days, the second woman's child was born. That night, the baby of the second woman died. She took the baby of the first woman, and replaced it with her dead child. The next morning, The first woman was shocked to see a dead baby by her breast. She accused the second woman of swapping the babies. To end the dispute, King Solomon asked for a sword and gave an order to cut the baby in two, so each woman will have a part of the baby. The first woman begged not to kill the baby, but the second woman urged the king to cut the child. With this, King Solomon gave the living baby to the first woman, who was willing to give up the baby as long as the child lives. King Herod was delivering a speech to his people. He was telling them of all of the good that had been done recently, when they began to praise him for the accomplishments. Herod took the praise for himself, and refused to acknowledge the one true God. Immediately, because he did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down, and he was eaten by worms slowly before dying. God took Ezekiel by the hand, and brought him in a valley filled with human bones. God told Ezekiel to give the command, and all of a sudden, the bones start moving and slithering towards him. The reattached bones all stood up, tendons and muscles start forming on them, and they rose up as a zombie army. The book of Revelation talks about the second coming of Jesus Christ, and he is joined by heavenly beings. The first beast was like a lion, the second beast is like a calf, the third beast has a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And each of the four beasts have 6 wings, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, holy, holy Lord God Almighty, which was, and is to come. The lion, which is the king of beasts, signifies God's majesty and omnipotence. The ox or the calf, represents God's patience and continuous labor. The man is God's intelligence and rational power. And the eagle, which is the greatest of the birds, is his sovereignty and supremacy. Although there are multiple interpretations of the beasts in the book of Revelation, that doesn't make their descriptions any less grotesque. Madeline has a strange and peculiar childhood. When she was 5 years old, she always saw her grandmother playing with dolls made of cotton, straw and cloth, and pierces them with sharp needles and pins. At that time, she thought that it was normal to play with dolls like that. She didn't know because she was not allowed to play with other kids her age. But she didn't mind at all, because her grandmother always let her to play with the dolls and needles. She has been under the care of her grandmother, after her mother died just months ago. Her mother was greatly disheartened and devastated, when their father left them for another woman. She fell into deep despair and depression that she forgot to take care of herself, became ill, then died. At a young age, Madeline was filled with hatred towards his father. She vowed to avenge her mother's death when the opportunity comes. She and her grandmother live in the outskirts of town, covered with thick forests. She's wondering why they don't have any neighbors. It's as if they have been secluded from the rest. But despite that, people are frequenting their place almost every day, and they seem to come from other towns. They always look troubled and bothered. Some were even crying. But after talking to her grandmother, their facial expressions changed radiantly. As if they have been given hope. Those were moments that were etched in Madeline's young mind. That her grandmother gives hope to everyone. One night, Madeline was asked by her grandmother to watch her do the ritual. At first, her grandmother was hesitant, but later on changed her mind eventually, because someone must continue their ways. Their gifts must not go to waste. Madeline saw her grandmother make a circle out of salt. In the center of the circle is a weird altar, which has a skull, lighted black candles, some potions, herbs, and a voodoo doll with a photo pinned to it. Her grandma knelt in front of the altar, and chanted incantations in an unfamiliar language. She dropped a few drops of the potion and candle wax on the picture while continuously chanting. Then, she pierced the doll's heart and head with the needle several times. The black candle's flames rose up higher. Madeline got scared and creeped out. But her grandmother explained everything. Day by day, as she witnesses her grandmother's rituals, she slowly understood the importance of their task and their responsibility to their clients. She considered themselves as bringer of justice. Years have passed and Madeline has attained mastery in their craft. She used her anger towards her father as a motivation to succeed. She wanted revenge. One night, she performed her long-term plan. She managed to get an old picture of her father from her mom's old things. She lighted black candles and chanted incantations, while holding a voodoo doll with the pinned photo. She poured a potion she made out of herbs and different venomous animals on the doll and picture. Then she brought out the jar of carnivorous beetles, worms and cockroaches. She whispered something to the insects, then opened the jar. All the insects crawled or flew in one direction. At that same moment, his father, who was eating together with his new family at their dinner table, immediately felt his head cracking. He clasped his throat and scratched it ferociously. Then he started vomiting beetles, worms and cockroaches. Flies started flying out of his ears and nose. Blood began dripping from his eyes. His wife and children all screamed in terror. He tried to drive away the insects, but he hit his head on the corner of the table, then fell on the floor, almost unconscious. The insects kept coming out of his mouth, then they entered again. Then he started scratching his heart repeatedly. After a few minutes, he stopped struggling, and breathed his last breath. All the insects left his lifeless body and went out of the house. Madeline knew that her ritual has worked. She smirked at his father's picture, tore it into pieces, then burned it using the black candle's flame. Indeed, revenge is sweet.